Some people spend years pretending to love you, until the moment they decide it's time for you to die. A splash, a gasp, cold water swallowing a shaky breath. My own family pushed my wheelchair into the lake for $11 million. Beat. But they forgot one thing. I learned how to swim long before they learned how to lie. Camera click. A red light blinking on the dock. And the moment they walked away, the camera woke up. Cut to black. The lake was always quiet in the early morning. Mist drifting above the water like tired ghosts. Birds calling from the pines. The old dock creaking whenever the wind touched it. I used to come here to pray, to breathe, to remember a time when my family was still mine. But on that day, I was taken here for a different reason. My name is Evelyn Rose Carter, and 2 days before my 78th birthday, I learned what my children truly thought of me. It began with a phone call from my son, Michael. "Mom," he said, voice strangely cheerful. "Let's take you to the lake house this weekend. You could use the fresh air." I should have known something was wrong. He hadn't visited me in months. Hadn't called me except when he needed something. But I still said yes. Because mothers remember the child, even when the child forgets the mother. The ride to the lake was unusually silent. Michael drove. His wife, Clara, sat beside him, twisting her fingers nervously. And behind me sat his younger brother. Daniel, the troublemaker turned businessman. He had always looked at money the way wolves look at wounded deer. I heard them whisper once they thought I was asleep. "Michael, it needs to look natural. The water's deep enough. Clara, are you sure the will can't be changed after?" "Daniel, she's barely holding on. No one will question it." My heart stopped. My blood turned thick and cold. They were talking about me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I let the wheelchair straps tighten around me like a coffin lid. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask why. But I understood the answer before they even said it. The money. The inheritance their father left behind $11 million from the land. The ranch and his military compensation. Money he wanted me to control. Money he trusted me with. In the silence, I heard the truth. They didn't want to wait for me to die. They wanted to schedule it. When we arrived at the lake, the sun was beginning to set. Orange light spilled over the water like fire, and for a moment, I thought maybe they would change their minds. But monsters don't grow hearts in the middle of sunsets. Clara pushed my wheelchair toward the dock while Michael locked the car. Daniel walked beside me, humming softly, as if escorting me to a picnic. "Beautiful evening, huh, Mom?" asked. I didn't answer. I think part of him enjoyed that. When we reached the old dock, I felt the boards tremble under us. The water hissed below, dark and patient, waiting. Michael stepped behind the wheelchair. Clara moved to the side, shaking, hands cold, eyes avoiding mine. And Daniel. Daniel leaned down, put his hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "Don't worry, Mom. We'll tell them you slipped. Then he kissed the top of my head like a goodbye. For a moment, I thought I would die before they even pushed me, my heart beating too fast, tears burning my eyes. But I wasn't crying out of fear. I was crying out of grief. A mother's final heartbreak is realizing her children would trade her life for a number on a bank screen. Michael's voice snapped. Due. Clara gasped. Michael, wait. But he was already behind me, already rolling, already pushing. I tried to lift my hands. I tried to kick, but the straps held me down. Then, splash. The water swallowed me whole. Cold, silent, merciless. Above the surface, I faintly heard Michael pretending to panic, Clara crying, Daniel saying, "Let's go. We need to call 911. I sank deeper. My dress billowed around me like a black cloud. My lungs clenched. My ears filled with roaring thunder. And then, instinct took over. They thought I couldn't swim. They thought the wheelchair would trap me. But I had unbuckled the straps before they reached the dock. When they weren't looking. The moment the water hit my face, I twisted free, kicked off the sinking metal chair, and swam toward the darkest side of the lake where the reeds grew thick. I surfaced silently, hidden, watching them walk away. Michael spoke first. She's gone, finally. Clara whispered through tears. This isn't right. Daniel cut her off. She's dead. And now we get what we deserve. But they didn't notice the tiny blinking light behind them. The red eye watching from the dock post. The security camera. Still recording. Still listening. Still alive. And so was I. The cold from the lake clung to my bones as I crouched among the thick reeds. Trembling, soaked, and gasping. The moon had not yet risen, and the last strands of daylight faded behind the trees. I could barely see my own hands, but I could hear everything: the footsteps on the dock, the murmured voices of my children, the casual cruelty of people who thought they'd already gotten away with murder. Let's go, Michael snapped, breathing hard. The faster we get back, the easier it is to tell the story. The story. As if my death were something he could simply rehearse. Like lines in a play he'd finally been cast in. Clara's voice cracked. Michael, we should check again. Wait. What if what? Daniel speak. She's old. She's weak. She can't swim. She's gone. End of discussion. Their silhouettes moved away from the dock. Their shapes stretching into monsters under the dying light. I tried to stand, but my legs shook violently. My lungs burned from the water I swallowed. The shock of betrayal weighed heavier than any wheelchair ever had. I whispered to myself, don't fall apart now. Not yet, not here. Because for the first time in my life, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt anger. I felt clarity. I felt purpose. I waited until I heard their car doors slam. Then the engine roared to life, tires crunching gravel as they sped away. Only When the sound faded completely did my body collapse forward. My fingers dug into the mud as the reality struck. My own sons tried to kill me. My children, the ones I held through fevers, storms, heartbreaks. The ones I stayed awake for through countless nights of worry. The ones I carried when their legs were too tired. And fought for when the world pushed them down. And now they wanted me dead. A sob tore from my throat, raw and helpless. It didn't sound like me. It sounded like a wounded animal mourning the pack it raised. Why? I cried into my shaking hands. Why would you do this to me? But the lake gave no answer. It took nearly an hour to drag myself out of the reeds. Each step felt like my bones were splintering. My wet clothes weighed 10 times heavier than my body. The wheelchair, my only support, was sinking somewhere in the dark, pulled slowly into the deep. I reached a patch of rocks and collapsed again, shivering uncontrollably. I didn't just need shelter. I needed a witness. I needed proof. My eyes slowly lifted toward the dock. There, barely visible, a tiny red light blinking in the dark. The camera had been installed by the forest rangers last year after. Someone vandalized the dock. They told everyone it was just for safety. No one paid it much attention. But it had seen everything. Every moment. Every wordji. Every push. If I could reach it. If I could pull the footage. Then their perfect plan would fall apart like wet paper. I forced myself upright again, gripping the railings and dragging my trembling body up the dock. My hands left streaks of mud and lake water behind me. My breath came in shallow, painful bursts. When I reached the camera, I almost laughed. A broken, bitter sound. The little box was still glowing, still recording. It had watched my death, but it would also watch my return. Underneath, it was a small hatch for the SD card. I pried it open with shaking fingers, nearly breaking my nails as I dug inside. My hands were numb, but desperation made them move. Finally, I felt the tiny card slide free into my palm. I held it tightly. This small piece of plastic was now the most dangerous thing my children had ever faced. But I wasn't safe. I couldn't go home. If they returned and found no body, they'd search. They'd panic. And panicked men do stupid, violent things. I needed help. Someone who would believe me. Someone who wouldn't look at the money and forget I was human. There was only one person. Officer Lena Brooks. She had been my late husband's closest friend after he came back from service. A woman with a sharp mind and a soft heart. Someone who still visited me even when my children didn't. But getting to her meant crossing half the forest. Alone, at night, soaked and freezing. The temperature was dropping fast. The wind cut through me like knives. Every inch of my skin burned from the cold. I whispered to the darkness, I can't die here. Not like this. Not after what they did. Then, a snap of branches nearby made my heart plummet. A heavy, deliberate step. Another. Someone was in the trees. Not an animal. Not a ranger. Someone walking slowly. Searching. My blood turned to ice. Michael's voice drifted through the woods low, furious and close. She's not floating. She should be floating. Where is she? Daniel hissed back. Keep your voice down. If someone hears us, I don't care. Michael snarled. Find her. My hand automatically closed over the SD card. If they found me now, they wouldn't hesitate. I slid back into the shadows behind the dock, heart pounding like a war drum. Michael stopped, only a few feet away. I could see his shoes. Mud on them. Lake water shining on the leather. Clara's trembling voice followed behind them. Please, let's just go home. But Michael wasn't leaving. Not until he was sure I was dead. I held my breath. The moon was rising. The light was shifting. If it touched me, they would see me. They would kill me. And no camera would save me this time. Michael's shadow stretched across the dock like a stain, creeping closer, devouring the moonlight. I pressed myself into the darkness, behind the support beams. The cold would biting into my back. I was shaking uncontrollably, not just from the lake water clinging to my skin, but from the terror crawling up my throat. I could hear his breathing, slow, ragged, unhinged. Where are you, Mom? He whispered into the night, his voice the calm before a hurricane. You're making this harder than it needs to be. The words sliced through me. Harder for him. For the son who pushed me into the lake like a piece of garbage. I clutched the SD card tighter in my fist. If he found me now, he wouldn't hesitate. Daniel's voice trembled. Michael, let's go. If someone sees us here, no one's here. Michael snapped. She fell in the water. Her heart must have stopped before she even knew what was happening. There's no way she survived. A pause. But what if she did? Daniel whispered. Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence said everything. He thought I was alive. And he was hunting me. Then I heard Clara, her footsteps soft, hesitant, almost childlike. Mikhail, please, let's go home. I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend. You'll pretend, Michael growled. You knew the plan. We all did. No, she choked, voice breaking. I never agreed to killing her. I thought she would. Pass peacefully. I didn't know you meant Michael. She's your mother. A raw, painful silence. Then a sound I will never forget. Michael's hand striking Clara's cheek. She gasped, stumbling back. Don't ever question me, he hissed. Not now. Not after everything. My heart clenched. Son. My sweet boy with scraped knees and chocolate-stained fingers. The child who once cried when a bird fell out of a nest. Now, hitting his wife because he was angry the murder wasn't clean. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the moonlight. Where did I go wrong? When did the child I raised disappear? How did greed poison him so completely? I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. They were spreading out, scanning the shoreline. Daniel had a flashlight now. Its beam cut through the darkness like a blade, creeping closer. I forced my breathing into silence. Chest tight with fear, lungs screaming for air. The beam passed inches from my face. I pressed my hand over my mouth, so tightly my nails dug into my skin. The light paused, hovered, then moved on. Only then did I dare to breathe. They searched for nearly 20 minutes. Every step, every whisper, every snapping branch made my heart lurch painfully. But then Michael's voice came again, frustrated, sharp, fraying at the edges. This is pointless. She's dead or close to it. The lake will take her. Nobody's going to find her. Clara, still crying softly, begged again, please, can we leave now? Daniel sighed. Let's go. Before someone sees us. Michael hesitated. Then finally, Fini. Their footsteps retreated. Leaves crunched. The engine roared. And then, like ghosts fleeing daylight, they were gone. I didn't move for a full minute. Couldn't. The moment my body realized I was safe for now, it shook violently. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. My chest ached from holding my breath so long. The betrayal stung deeper than the cold. My children, the ones I sacrificed everything for, the ones I held, fed, loved, protected, the ones I would have died for, now wanted me dead. A sob tore from me, quiet but wrenching. It wasn't from fear. It wasn't from the cold. It was grief. A grief so heavy it pressed me into the earth. Because losing your life is one thing, but losing your children while still alive, that is the deepest kind of death. But grief could wait. I had a mission. I crawled out from behind the dock, my fingers numb and stiff. Each movement felt like dragging a broken body through ice. I looked at the SD card in my palm. My lifeline. My weapon. If I could get it to Officer Lena Brooks, everything would change. I forced myself forward, step by trembling step, into the forest. The path was uneven, covered in roots and shadows. Branches clawed at my clothes. The wind cut through me like knives. My breaths came in harsh, painful gasps. My heart thudded sluggishly cold, exhausted, fighting to keep me alive. More than once I stumbled, falling hard onto my knees. Each time, I tasted dirt and blood. Each time, the world spun around me, black at the edges. But I kept moving. Because if I stopped, I knew I would die. Whether by nature or my son's hands, I didn't know. Either way, I wasn't ready. Not before I saw justice. Not before I exposed them. Not before I proved that even a broken old woman could fight back. Finally, through the thick curtains of trees, I saw something. A faint yellow glow in the distance. A porch light. Lena's cabin. A sob of relief escaped my throat. My legs buckled, but I pushed forward, dragging myself through the leaves, reaching for that glowing beacon like a drowning woman reaching for air. My vision blurred. My body was shutting down. I was only 10 feet away when I collapsed. The SD card slipped from my fingers into the dirt. My cheek pressed against the cold ground. I heard footsteps fast, urgent. Then a voice familiar, warm, panicked. Evelyn. Oh my God, Evelyn, what happened? Strong arms lifted me. The world tilted. My eyes fluttered. And with the last breath I had strength for, I whispered, Lena. They tried to kill me. The darkness closed in, and I let it. Warmth. That was the first thing I felt. Not comfort, just the shocking contrast of heat against my frozen skin as consciousness struggled to pull me upward. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Only that the world was bright again, too bright. And my lungs burned every time I breathed. Then a voice broke through the haze. Evelyn, Evelyn, can you open your eyes? I knew that voice. Steady, strong, always anchored in truth. I forced my eyelids open. Officer Lena Brooks leaned over me, her brows knitted with worry. Her cabin ceiling wooden, low, familiar hovered behind her. She was wrapping a heated blanket around my shoulders while kneeling beside her couch, where she had laid me. When she saw my eyes open, she let out a shaky breath. A breath filled with fear and relief. Thank God, she whispered. I thought I lost you. My throat burned. The words scraped out like gravel. They tried to kill me. Lena froze just for a second. Then her jaw tightened. Tell me everything, she said, voice trembling with controlled anger. I swallowed hard. It felt like swallowing shards of glass. They took me to the lake, I whispered. Mikael, Daniel, Clara, they pushed my wheelchair into the water. They thought I couldn't swim. Lena closed her eyes for a brief moment, her hand tightening into a fist. Evelyn, she whispered. Why would they do this? Why now? The question made my chest ache. $11 million, I rasped. My husband's inheritance. They wanted it. They didn't want to wait. My voice cracked. Tears welled in my eyes, slipping hot down my cold cheeks. Lena leaned closer, resting her hand gently on my shoulder steady, grounding. I'm so sorry, she whispered. You didn't deserve this. Not after everything you've done for them. I took a shaky breath. There's proof, I said. Camera. On dock. It recorded everything. That got her attention. Her eyes widened. Where is it? My fingers weakly lifted from under the blanket, pointing toward the small wooden table beside her. Pocket in my dress. I dropped it. But I brought it. Lena moved fast, rifling through my soaked dress that she had draped over a chair to dry. A moment later, she pulled out the tiny SD card. She stared at it with a mixture of horror and hope. This contains their confession? She asked. It contains my murder, I whispered. The truth landed heavy in the air. Lena looked at me, as if seeing a different woman, one who had crawled through hell and returned with evidence carved from betrayal. She closed her fingers around the SD card. "I'm going to play it," she said softly. She helped me sit up slowly, carefully propping pillows behind me because my body shivered each time I moved. Then she inserted the SD card into her laptop. A buzzing silence filled the room thick with dread. The file loaded. The timestamp appeared. And then the video began to play. I wasn't ready. I don't think anyone could ever be ready to watch their own children try to kill them. The camera showed the dock first quiet, peaceful. The sunset reflecting on the water like gold. Then my wheelchair rolled into frame. Michael behind me. Daniel beside me. Clara trailing, her hands trembling. The audio was clear. Michael's voice cut through the still air. "She lived long enough. It's time." My heart twisted so painfully I had to grip the blanket. Lena's hand snapped over her mouth in horror. Daniel's voice followed. "We'll say she slipped. Nobody will question it." The screen showed Clara softly crying, whispering, "She's your mother." Michael turned on her with a glare that could kill. "She's a liability." Then came the push. My body hit the water with a loud, violent splash. My own scream choked, panic echoed through the speakers. Lena's eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They didn't just try. They meant it." The camera recorded everything. Michael saying, "Good, it's done." Daniel saying, "Let's go before someone sees." Clara sobbing as she followed. Then, the water stilling, the dock empty, the light blinking. Lena closed the laptop gently, as if afraid the video would burn right through the screen. She turned to me. Her voice was low, dark, dangerous. "They tried to murder you," she said, each word trembling with fury. "Your own children." I hugged myself, tears streaming down my face. "I raised them," I whispered. "I fed them, protected them. I gave them everything I had. And they..." My voice broke. Lena moved beside me and wrapped her arms around my shoulders. I clung to her like a drowning woman clings to the last piece of floating wood. "I know," she whispered into my hair. "And I promise you listen to me. Evelyn and I will not let them get away with this." I trembled in her embrace. "But they'll come back," I said through tears. "They'll realize they didn't see my body. They'll start searching. They'll be angry. They'll be desperate." Lena pulled away, gripping my shoulders tightly. "Let them come," she said, fire burning in her eyes. "I'm here now, and I'm not afraid of them." But I was. Because desperate men are the most dangerous kind. And my sons were about to realize that their mother wasn't dead. Not yet. And when they did, the hunt would begin again. For a few minutes, after the footage ended, the cabin was completely silent. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that comes before a storm destroys everything in its path. Officer Lena Brooks stood slowly. Her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. She paced, holding the SD card like it was both dynamite and a lifeline. They planned it, she said under her breath. They planned it down to the minute. Those monsters. Evelyn, I swear to you. Her voice shook with fury. I'll make sure they never breathe free air again. I tried to answer, but exhaustion pressed down on me like wet cement. My body felt heavier by the second. My eyelids kept drooping. Lena noticed and rushed back to my side. You need rest. Your body's in shock. I leaned back against the pillows, breathing shallowly. I can't sleep yet. They'll call me. They'll. I locked the doors, loaded my weapon. You're safe here. Safi. I wanted to believe that, Dokuma. But somewhere deep inside, a mother's instinct whispered, they will come, because they always clean up their messes. Hours passed. Lena made tea I could barely drink, wrapped me in more blankets, and checked my pulse every few minutes. It felt like a dream, or perhaps a moment carved out of time. Quiet, fragile, trembling. But then, just as the clock struck midnight, headlights flashed through the trees. My blood froze. Lena stepped to the window, the muscles in her jaw tightening. A car crawled up the dirt road slow, deliberate, predatory. She didn't need to say a word. I knew that vehicle. My son's truck. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stay down, Lena whispered, grabbing her weapon. I slid off the couch and hid behind it, trembling violently. The wooden floor felt cold against my palms. My breath shuddered in my throat. Lena peeked through the curtain again. 3 people, she murmured, all matching the descriptions you gave me. Mikael, Daniel, Clara. They got out of the truck, voices hushed. Flashlights cutting through the darkness. Michael's voice rang through the trees. She has to be here. Someone saw footprints near this cabin. Daniel's voice followed. That old cop likes her. She help her. Clara didn't speak. But I saw her. Face pale, hands trembling. Hugging herself like she was trying to keep from falling apart. Footsteps crunched closer. My stomach twisted. They were coming for me again. Lena turned off the lights. The cabin fell into darkness. She positioned herself near the door, gun drawn, breathing steady and controlled. Then she looked back at me, Aka. Her voice was a soft whisper. If they try to enter, I will protect you. Tehidan. No matter what happens. I nodded, clutching a pillow to my chest. My heart pounding so loud I feared it would echo through the walls. A knock hammered against the door. Hard. Demanding. Cruel. Lena, Michael called out, pretending warmth. We're looking for my mother. We're worried sick. She wandered off from the lake. Lena didn't answer. Another knock, louder. Then, Daniel's voice. Fake, concern dripping like poison. We just want to make sure she's okay. My vision blurred with tears. They were lying so easily, so smoothly, so naturally. How many times had they lied to me like this before? Lena finally spoke loud enough to be heard through the door. It's past midnight. You need to leave. Michael's pleasant tone cracked. We're not leaving without her. She's not here, Lena said, each word sharp. A tense pause. Then Michael's voice dropped, low and dangerous. Lena, you don't want to get involved in this. Lena stepped back from the door, eyes narrowing. They're threatening a police officer, she whispered to me. They're far more desperate than I thought. And desperation makes men violent. Suddenly, a loud bang exploded against the door. I jumped, stifling a scream. Michael was kicking it. Hard. Lena raised her gun. Back away from the door. She shouted. But they didn't. Another kick. Another. The wooden frame began to crack. My breath hitched. I curled tighter behind the couch. If they break through. If they see me. Lena can't stop 3 of them at once. I whispered into the darkness. Please, God, don't let them find me. Clara's voice broke through the chaos, shaky, terrified. Michael, stop. Please, stop this. This isn't right. But Michael roared, shut up. Another violent kick snapped part of the doorframe. Lena took a step closer, gun steady, finger on the trigger. Final warning. She shouted. Then, a sudden sound cut through the tension like a blade. Police sirens. Faint at first, growing louder. Daniel cursed. Someone called for backup. Michael's fury exploded. We're not done. We're not done. But Clara, shaking violently, grabbed his arm. Michael, please, if we stay, we'll be arrested. Let's go. For a brief moment, the 3 stood outside the shattered doorframe, outlined by the moonlight. And in that frozen second, Michael looked right at the window, right toward where I hid. I held my breath. My blood turned to ice. Did he see me? Did he sense me? His eyes narrowed cold, calculating, burning with hatred. Then he turned away. Get in the truck, he growled. They run. Minutes later, the engine roared. The tires spun. And they vanished into the darkness once again. Lena locked the broken door as best she could, then rushed to me. You okay? I nodded, sinking back into her arms, shaking uncontrollably. They won't stop, I whispered. No, she agreed softly, her voice grim. But neither will we. Outside, the distant sirens approached. Inside, I clung to the only person who hadn't betrayed me. And in that moment, one truth settled like a stone in my chest. This was no longer a story about survival. This was a war. I didn't sleep after the detectives left. How could I? Every creak of the house felt like footsteps. Every whisper of wind felt like someone outside the window, watching. The footage was with the police now, but Daniel and Clara didn't know that. All they knew was that I wasn't dead, and that alone made them dangerous. I sat in the dim living room, the lamp barely lighting the space. My breath shallow, my chest tight. Hours passed. Midnight dissolved into something darker. Then, a sound. Crunch. Gravel outside. Slow, heavy, wrong. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. I wheeled myself a little closer to the window and peeked through the curtain. A black SUV. No headlights. Engine off. Daniel's car. My throat closed. I backed the wheelchair up, breath shaking. They were here. Not to talk. Not to apologize. Not for guilt. To finish what they started. The front doorknob twisted. Once. Then again. Quiet. Controlled. Someone trying not to alert me. I covered my mouth. A whisper through the door. Mom, you awake? Daniel. But his voice. It wasn't warm. It wasn't soft. It was cold. Flattened. Like he had already buried me in his mind. Then Clara's voice joined him. Sickeningly sweet. We just want to check on you. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled on the wheels. Who? No, they didn't. They wanted me gone permanently, quietly, before the police could dig deeper, before the camera footage surfaced. Then, thud, they shoved the door with force. I gasped. My eyes darted to the back hallway. I couldn't outrun them. I couldn't outfight them. Maybe I could outthink them. I remembered what Detective Harris had told me before leaving. If you feel unsafe at any moment, call me immediately. We are watching them closely. My phone was in my pocket. Hands shaking, I dialed. A whisper. Detective. They're here. Stall them, Harris said. We're already close. Do not let them leave. My heart hammered so violently I tasted metal. Okay, I whispered. I hung up, took a deep breath, and called out. Daniel, Clara? The door's open. It wasn't. But I needed to make them believe I was close, unaware, vulnerable. They fell for it. The door burst open. Their footsteps entered fast. I wheeled myself back into the hallway, into just enough shadow that they had to walk toward me to see. Daniel stepped in first. His face was pale with shock. Clara stood behind him, eyes wide, lips parted in disbelief. Mom, Daniel said, voice low, strained. Why didn't you answer the phone? I gave him a smile so brittle it could cut glass. You didn't call. His jaw flexed. That one sentence exposed him. Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling with fake concern. We were worried. After the accident at the lake. Accident, I repeated softly, letting the word rot in the air. Her face twitched. I wheeled a little closer, letting the lamp reveal just half of my face. Why did you come here at 1 a.m.? I asked. Not exactly a normal time to check on someone, is it? Daniel swallowed, eyes flicking around, searching for cameras. Witnesses, anything. What did you tell the police? He asked. There it was. The truth bleeding out of him, raw and naked at Kama. I kept my expression calm, though my inside shook like glass in an earthquake. I told them the truth. Clara's face hardened. What truth? She snapped her cur. I stared right at her. The truth you already know. Her nostrils flared. Her mask cracked. Daniel stepped closer. Too close. His voice dropped. Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now. Let us help you. Help me. The words were poison. I leaned back slightly, folding my hands in my lap. And with a steady voice, I said, I know what you did. I know why you did it. And the police know too. Silence. For one terrible second, the room felt like a coffin ceiling shut. Then Daniel's expression changed, slowly, like a shadow crawling across his face. Cold. Predatory. Cornered. We didn't do anything, he said, stepping nearer. And we're not going anywhere. His tone made my skin crawl. Clara reached into her purse. Something metal glinted. Not a knife. A hammer. My breath vanished. Oh God, I whispered. Clara smiled. Let's talk privately. In the bedroom. I didn't move. I couldn't. Then, sirens. Not faint. Fach. Loud. Growing. Close. Daniel and Clara froze. Clara dropped the hammer. It clattered on the hardwood, echoing through the house. Daniel backed up, so fast he hit the wall. No, gasped. What did you do? I lifted my phone. I called for help. Red and blue lights flooded through the window. Heavy boots thundered up the porch. A shout. Police, open up. Daniel panicked. Clara ran toward the back door. But officers burst in from both sides, guns drawn. Flashlights slicing through the house. Hands where we can see them. Daniel put his hands up, shaking, eyes frantic. Clara screamed as an officer grabbed her. Within seconds, they were both pinned to the floor, breathing hard, trapped, over. Detective Harris walked in, eyes scanning the room, landing on me. You're safe now, she said softly. I exhaled, a long, fragile breath I felt I had been holding for years. But this wasn't the end. This was only the moment the darkness was caught. Now, the truth had to be proven, and justice was just beginning. The courtroom felt colder than the lake. They tried to drown me in. I sat in my wheelchair near the front, wrapped in a shawl, breathing slowly, trying to calm the tremor in my hands. The fluorescent lights above hummed like a distant swarm of bees, and every echo of footsteps on the polished floor made my stomach twist. Daniel and Clara sat across the room with their attorneys well-dressed, well-funded, and wearing expressions that pretended innocence. But their eyes told the truth. Cold, cornered, calculating. Clara didn't look at me at all. Daniel looked broken. Not guilty, no, not that, but angry. Angry that his plan failed. Angry that I was alive. Angry that his perfect little scheme shattered because I could swim. But the trial wasn't just about attempted murder. Oh, this was about the $11 million they were so desperate to get their hands on. Money they believed belonged to them. Money they thought would come faster if I disappeared forever. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair, grounding myself. Judge Kramer, man whose expression never changed, adjusted his glasses and began. State of Washington versus Daniel Holley and Clara Holley. We resume. The prosecutor, Ms. Green, stood. Her presence was sharp, controlled, a blade drawn, ready. Your Honor, she began. Today the evidence will show that the defendants did not merely panic or act out of emotion, but premeditated an attempt to kill their own mother and mother-in-law, motivated by greed, entitlement, and a history of financial desperation. I watched Daniel's jaw clench. Then Ms. Green continued, voice firm. We will also reveal a series of financial documents, hidden communications, and a family secret that drastically changes the motive. A family secret. My heartbeat stuttered. What secret? She glanced at me with a gentle nod, as though anticipating my confusion. Then the first witness took the stand, Detective Harris. She recounted everything, the night at the lake, the camera footage, the timestamps, the inconsistencies in Daniel and Clara's statements, the objects found in their vehicle that proved preparation rather than panic. But then, Ms. Green asked, Detective, can you explain the financial motive behind the attack? Detective Harris nodded and pulled out a folder thick with documents. When we executed a search warrant on the defendant's home, she said, we discovered letters, account statements, and emails suggesting they believed Mrs. Holley, she gestured toward me, was planning to change her will. My breath caught. I never told them that. Not yet. Daniel looked down, face rigid. Clara glared at me, as though I had personally stabbed her. Ms. Green turned to the judge. Your Honor, permission to introduce Exhibit 47. The judge nodded. On the courtroom screen appeared a printed email, zoomed in so everyone could see. It was from Daniel to Clara. And in that moment, I felt something inside me shatter, not just from the attempted murder, not from the lake, not from the danger, but from finally seeing the truth, raw and undeniable. My own son didn't just try to kill me. He had been planning it for years. The day of the verdict arrived, dressed in gray clouds and a wind that felt like it carried every memory I wished I could forget. I sat in the courtroom, hands clasped together, breathing slowly, quietly, like each breath was a fragile thread holding me to the moment. Daniel and Clara were led in, wrists cuffed. The sight burned, even after everything. He was still my son. She was still the woman he'd chosen. But love can survive many things. It cannot survive attempted murder. The judge entered. Everyone rose. The sound of chairs scraping the floor felt like thunder rolling through my bones. When the courtroom settled, Judge Kramer looked over his glasses, his voice steady. "We have reached a verdict." The world seemed to still. He turned to the jury. "Has the jury reached a unanimous decision?" The foreman, an older man with tired eyes, stood. "Sir noch." My pulse pounded in my throat. I gripped the arms of my wheelchair, so tightly my fingers ached. The foreman read from the paper in his hands. "In the case of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant, Daniel Holle, guilty." My breath left me. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just truth. Reality. The foreman continued. "In the case of conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, tampering with evidence, and aggravated assault, we find the defendant, Clara Holle, guilty." Clara gasped, collapsing into her chair. Daniel froze, staring straight at the jury, as if they had personally betrayed him. As if he had a plan for meth. As if he was the victim. The judge nodded solemnly. "Sentencing will commence." Daniel suddenly burst forward, rising from his seat, fury exploding out of him. "This isn't fair," shouted. "She's lying. She manipulated everything. She wanted to cut us out." The judge struck his gavel. "Order. Sit down, Mr. Holle." But Daniel didn't stop. He turned toward me, eyes wild, voice cracking. "Why did you do this to us? Why didn't you just give us the money? Why did you make this happen?" I stared at him, my son, who once ran barefoot in the yard, chasing fireflies, who once cried into my chest when he scraped his knee, who once called me his hero. My voice came out broken. "Because love isn't something you kill for." Silence. Just that sentence. Just that truth. Daniel's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge ordered the bailiffs to restrain him. He sagged in their arms, breath shaking. Clara was crying now soft, pitiful sobs that trembled through the room. Sentencing was swift. For Daniel, 35 years. For Clara, 22 years. They were led away. Clara didn't look back. Daniel did. For a brief moment, his eyes met mine. Not hate. Not fear. Something emptier. A hollow where a sun used to be. Then he disappeared behind the courtroom doors. When the room cleared, Detective Harris approached me, her expression gentle. "You did it," she said softly. "No," I whispered. "They did." She placed a hand on my shoulder. "You survived what many wouldn't. You fought back. You saved yourself." I nodded, though it felt less like victory and more like standing in the ruins of a life I once knew. "Will you be all right?" she asked. The question hit deeper than she knew. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know. Weeks later, the house was quieter than ever. Every photo on the wall felt like a wound. Daniel's childhood pictures, the family holidays, the birthday cakes with crooked candles, the messy smiles. All of it felt like memories from someone else's life. One evening, I wheeled myself out to the lake. The same lake where they tried to end me. The water was calm, now glass-like, reflecting the sunset's last burning colors. Red, purple. I watched my reflection ripple. The mother they tried to drown. The woman who refused to sink. As the wind brushed my hair, I whispered, "I forgive you, Daniel." But forgiveness doesn't mean you get to come back. I closed my eyes, letting the wind carry the words. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Soft, hesitant. I turned, startled. A young woman stood there, maybe in her late 20s, holding a folder against her chest. She smiled shyly. "Mrs. Hale?" "My name is Jenna. I work with the Children's Medical Foundation." My heart softened. "I heard about everything you went through," she continued. "We wanted to thank you. Your donation is going to change so many lives." I blinked, warmth filling the cold spaces inside me. My donation. The one Daniel and Clara didn't want me to make. The one that almost cost me my life. She handed me a letter from the foundation, handwritten, filled with gratitude. I read it silently, tears slipping down my cheeks. Jenna's voice trembled. "You saved far more than your own life, Mrs. Hale." When she left again, the world felt bigger, brighter, quieter, kinder. And finally, I didn't feel alone. I whispered into the wind. "You tried to drown me, but I learned how to breathe." Then I wheeled myself away from the water, back toward the life that waited for me, the life no one could take again. Because justice wasn't just the verdict. Justice was survival. Justice was truth. Justice was the strength to live again. And I had all three. If you've stayed with me until this moment, thank you. Not just for listening to my story, but for feeling it with me.